The way Ruth sprinted upstairs was absolutely hilarious. I was like, let me find out Ruth is in shape. I really enjoy this episode, but there are definitely some things we need to talk about. Let's get into it. The conversation between Ruth and Tom was both touching and funny. Ruth reveals that she has a daughter with a man she was having an affair with and later gave that little girl up for adoption. That little girl turned out to be Lauren, Tom's late wife, which means Evan is actually the last living descendant of Richard Warren. Given Tom's immediate instincts to hide Evan's identity when Bashir asks who is the island's true heir is, I think keeping that secret is going to be a major storyline in season 2. The entire time Ruth was watching her family from a distance, she explains that one of the reasons she kept showing up to work was so she could remain close to Evan without ever revealing the truth. In her own way, she was just trying to be part of her grandson's life while respecting the choices she made years ago. When Tom asked Ruth about her story club, she explained that she and her friends gather together and literally write stories. She even mentioned that this is how Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein. And she's right. While trapped indoors during a storm, Mary Shelley, her husband Percy, and Lord Byron challenged each other to write horror stories. Out of that challenge came Frankenstein, one of the most influential Gothic horror novels ever written. Then Ruth starts talking about her old boyfriend Alfred. She mentioned that he was bitten by an animal and eventually became that animal. Now maybe that's just a story, but my theory is that it could be foreshadowing a werewolf storyline in season 2. Let me explain. While werewolves are most commonly associated with European folklore, French Canadian legends brought stories into New England, particularly areas like Maine, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. One famous local legend is the Woonsocket werewolf, a creature said to roam the woods near the Blackstone River. There are also historical records from the 1500s involving alleged werewolf trials. In 1521, two shepherds named Pierre and Michael confessed to making a pact with the devil in exchange for food, meeting with the man in black who gave them ointment that transformed them into werewolves and allowed them to hunt children at night. Both men were eventually convicted and executed. What's interesting is that this theory could also connect back to the wolf calendar we saw in episode 1. I could be completely wrong, but I would absolutely love to see Widow's Bay introduce werewolf lore next season. Ruth then talks about her first day working as a secretary to Mayor Howard the Coward. That nickname alone had me dying out laughing, but it also raised a question. What exactly scared Howard enough to leave? Did he encounter the hag? Did he see another entity? And who was mayor before Tom? Those are questions I still wanted answers. Then Ruth points to a picture of Pastor Roberts. She said that he was like a father to her. Tom jokingly asks if the pastor ever made a pass at her. She laughs and then casually says, "Oh, you know what? You're right, he did make a pass." I was like, oh my God, Ruth. What's interesting is that Pastor Roberts is likely the same pastor referenced in the letter we briefly saw back in episode 7. The note reads, "I wish my words alone could convey the gravity of the situation, but this is the only way you will understand." That makes me wonder if Pastor Roberts met the same fate as Bryce and ultimately took his own life. Ruth also talks about her parents and reveals that her father built the family home. Unfortunately, something got him in the lake. That immediately reminded me of Wick's story about Jerry and her brother. It seems like the lake has been claiming people for generations. One of my favorite moments comes when Tom asks Ruth about the trolley problem. Ruth completely misunderstands the question and responds, "You mean back in 42 when we tried to build one and all the workers disappear?" Tom then explains the actual philosophical trolley problem, which asks whether it's morally acceptable to sacrifice one person to save many others. The philosophical trolley problem, which is actually what Tom was trying to ask about, was originated by the British philosopher in 1967 and popularized Judith Jarvis Thomson. It asks whether it is morally permissible to divert a runway trolley to kill one person, thereby saving five. Without hesitation, Ruth said she could never pull the lever. She stated, "You can't control the bad things that happen in life, Tom, but if I pull that lever, I'm choosing to kill someone. I could never do that." Ruth believes matters of life and death should be left to fate, God, or whatever you think controls the world in which we live. Then she shares a Tennessee Williams quote that she turned into a cross stitch. Honestly, that quote feels like the entire message of Widow's Bay. The world is chaotic, life is unfair, but love is what makes it worth enduring. Ruth drives the point home when she tells Tom, "You want this place to be Martha's Vineyard, and it's never going to be." Then she gets even more philosophical by saying there's no bliss waiting at the finish line. Even if there was, it would just be taken away from you. That's life. In all its ugly, beautiful, terrible glory, you have to accept it. And honestly, I don't think Tom is ready to accept that. When I tell you Ruth was dropping gems on this episode of Tom to let Tom know, like, hey, things are not perfect, but we will survive together just like we survived these storms. Later, Dale sits down and watches the strange orientation films, and if you ever watch Lost, these scenes immediately feel like the Dharma Initiative videos.
Welcome to the island. You are now a member of the Dharma Initiative. There are properties on this island that exist nowhere else on Earth. Our mission is to study.
When Dale sat down and watched those freaky film strips marked for them and for you, that's what it reminds me of. The first film labeled for them explains that certain people have been selected as offerings. Maybe they committed crimes, maybe they owe debt to society, maybe they simply even being judged unworthily. The entire thing feels like a twisted justification for sacrifice. What raises another question? Who is making these decisions? Is there a secret committee still operating on the island, or if one will be created in season 2? Back in episode 6, we've learned that there was some kind of committee involved behind the scenes. But what happened to them? What's interesting is that the orientation film suggests that someone had decided who will become an offering and who wouldn't. That kind of system doesn't happen by accident. Someone had to create the rules, enforce them, and keep the covenant going. So my theory is that either the original committee still exists in some form, or season 2 will reveal a new group that has inherited that responsibility. Because if sacrifices are still being demanded by the island, somebody has to be making the decisions. Then we get the second film, Call for You. This one explains that the island's suffering won't end until the covenant is fully honored. Life for a life, one soul for each bell toll. The narrative warns people not to confront the prisoners because their fear is necessary. Then comes the line that stuck with me. It likes the taste. But what is exactly it? Is it the island itself? A supernatural entity, a spirit controlling everything from the shadows? Or is it simply another Stephen King reference? Because one of the major themes throughout the series has been fear and guilt. When you really think about it, Widow's Bay shares some similarities with Stephen King's It. Both stories focus on a community haunted by an ancient evil that feeds on people's fears, while the townspeople either ignore the truth or refuse to confront it. In It, Pennywise thrives on fear. In Widow's Bay, it almost feels like the island feeds on fear, suffering, and guilt. And that's why the line, "It like the taste," stood out to me so much. So maybe it isn't just referring to the island itself. Maybe it is a direct nod to Stephen King It and the idea that fear is the thing that truly gives these entities power. Now we finally understand why Rosemary said that the woman who had her job before her warned her never go into the shelter. And now we know why.
This place is a death trap!
By the end of the finale, we still don't know exactly what happened after the storm. Did everyone survive? Did Shelley have her baby? And what happened to Ruth? Personally, I think Ruth survived. Not only does she appear to be alive after being shot, but I also think she may be immortal, just like Richard Warren and the boogeyman before her. As long as she remains on the island, she may be unable to die. What I do know is this: the island isn't finished demanding sacrifice. Right before Tom gets back into the car after throwing away the brooch, the church bells ring 8 times, which means the island wants more 8 souls, one for each bell toll. Now here is my theory. Last episode, I discussed whether Patricia might be the descendant of Richard Warren, but now I think Patricia already knew that Ruth was Lauren's mother and that Evan was the true descendant. She didn't want that information revealed because she was trying to protect Tom and Evan. I don't know exactly how she figured it out, but Patricia always seemed to know more than she's telling people. Also, there is an article in the Rap.com. Someone asked the creator, do you think the witch who wrote the spell book in episode 4 is still lurking around? Her response was very interesting. Katie states, I tried to do it so that it's dealt with in the moment, but she could come back. That tells me we're not done with witches yet. In fact, I think season 2 is going to lean even harder into witchcraft, curses, and possibly even werewolf lore. And I'm here for it. Since the season is over, here are some TV shows that are similar to Widow's Bay that I want you guys to check out. I'll be posting a list of recommended shows on my community tab, so be sure to check that out and take a screenshot. It's been amazing discussing Widow's Bay with all of you this season. I am covering Sugar Season 2 and Silo Season 3. Make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your theories in the comments. Let me know what you are predicting for Season 2 because I cannot wait to see Widow's Bay again. And I will see you in the next one.